My name is Dianisha Mitchell. I was sexually abused and assaulted starting from the age of 7 all the way up to the age, I believe, 14 or 15 years old. I grew up in a 2-parent household with my mom and my stepdad, and it's 4 of us siblings. We were really treated bad. It was abusive. Since I was a little girl, I never really had a relationship with my mom, and I still don't till this day. I love her, but we're just not as close. When I was first born, my grandmother took custody of me, so I was mainly living with her, and with my mom being a teenage mother, she could barely take care of me herself, so my grandmother took on that responsibility, and she took care of me, and that's where my uncle lived. Ever since I was 7 years old and under, I just never had a good relationship with my uncle. It was always good and bad. He would always hit on me. He would give me wedgies. He has kicked me in my private part before. He would push me in the bathroom and lock the doors on me and stuff. So my uncle has always been physically abusive and started becoming sexually abusive to me. I don't remember everything due to trauma block, but I do remember the room. He would just lay me down on the bed. He would touch on me. He would always touch my butt, kiss on my lips, and I would always feel disgusted. I remember one time I ran to my grandmother and I told her he was touching on me and stuff like that. And I showed her he was touching my chest, my private. And she just shooed me away. She didn't really care. She didn't even pay attention to listen, and it just kept going on and on all the time. And I would just get so irritated being around him. I would cry. I never wanted to be around my uncle growing up. Anytime somebody would compare us and say, "Oh, you look like him," I would get so furious because I knew what he was doing to me all the time. And it didn't stop until I left. I don't remember exactly when the time frames occurred, but I did share a room with my uncle. I think it was across the hallway from my nana. And that's where he would mostly just do anything he wanted to do with me whenever he wanted to do, because we was in the same bedroom. When I turned 10 years old, that's when we moved into our old house. But my uncle would still come around. So I believe I may have trauma blocked it out because I started getting close to my uncle again. But he was still abusive. He would still hit on me, taunt me, make fun of me. But that is when I lived with my mom and my stepfather. So I was no longer under the roof of my grandmother's house until we moved from there. A year or so later, I lived with her at her previous home. And that's when the abuse started again. And when I turned 13 or 14 years old, when I was downstairs by myself, and he came downstairs, he looked at me, and this look didn't look like a normal uncle-niece look. It looked very sexual, and it was just me and him down there. He started walking towards me. I immediately froze. I got scared. He started walking towards me. I forgot what he stated, but he touched my butt, and I just pushed him off of me, and I screamed as loud as I could. I remember I ran up the stairs and I'm screaming, Nana, Fuller he just tried to do something to me. And I tried to call the police that night. And I remember my Nana, she told the police that her head was hurting. And she didn't tell the police what happened to me. So once again, I tried to tell, and nothing was fixed. Once again, tried to reach out for help, and nothing was fixed. He ran away that night. Wherever he went, he always run away, and he ran away and hid somewhere. But instead of taking up for her grandchild and telling the police what happened, she came up with some excuse and saying her head hurt and stuff. And that's what hurts the most. My own grandmother, that's my Nana, who raised me since I was a baby. And still to this day, she don't believe me. She called me a liar and everything. That's my Nana. I love her. But yeah, she would rather put him over her granddaughter. In 5th grade, I got held back, so I had to repeat 5th grade. And that's when I moved back to my Nana house. And I had a childhood friend in 5th grade. One day I was at her house and she went inside. She said she had to go inside, and she ran down the driveway into her house. And I was standing at the top of the driveway, and I seen her. That was her uncle or her cousin. I just seen him come from the backyard, and I didn't think nothing of it. I was a child. And he just pulled out his and started masturbating. And I hurry up, like I went in shock, and I hurry up and just turned the other way, and I was shaking, I was scared, but I didn't do anything. And she came outside and we just ran and went and played. But it was on a winter day, and all the kids was outside. All the boys was outside playing football, and the girls was just standing around. And I remember she came down to my house. She knocked on the door. She asked for me. I put on my pink coat that day, and I went outside with her. And she had to go in the house again. And it's nothing she did. She was a child too. So this time I didn't see him. So I wasn't worried or anything. I sat on the front porch bench near the front door, and to the corner of my eyes, I seen him. And my whole body continued to froze. I couldn't move. I felt frozen, like I couldn't do anything. And I was so scared. And he came close to me. He sat next to me, and he had like an iPod in his hand. And he told me to play with it. And that's when he pulled out his private part. And I just started shaking and stuff. And he made me masturbate him. And he pushed my head down on his private, and everything goes blank from there. I just remember myself running home. I went in the bathroom, I slammed the door, and I'm in a corner just crying. And ever since then, I would be so scared to walk past their house. Anytime going to school, I would try not to look that way. I would run. I was so terrified to go to that house due to what he did to me. My childhood friend ended up coming, I think it was a month later, and she was stating that her cousin or uncle, whoever he was to her, that he had went to prison for sexually assaulting a family member. But I still never told her till last year. So I kept that with me for years. I was 13 years old with the third abuser, which was my uncle's close friend that he grew up with. And the scary thing is, I don't know if he probably did something to me prior to that because of how comfortable he was with doing that to me. He came over. I just remember I was listening to a Beyonce music video, and I'm just dancing with my cousin, my youngest cousin. And he came up the stairs and he stood there and he said, "Nisha, you got so big." And he just stared at me. And with this stare, once again, it made me uncomfortable. And it didn't feel normal. I felt sexualized again as a child. So I immediately got scared and I tried to block it out. As the night goes on, he asked me, "Where are you sleeping? Do you usually sleep upstairs or downstairs?" And I was just like, I don't know. And I kept trying to go to my Nana But every time I would go in the room, anywhere I go, he would pop up there. Fast forward, I'm sitting down at the kitchen table in the kitchen, and everyone is in the house. My auntie, my nana, my uncle, and my youngest cousin. I'm sitting at the dinner table. My youngest cousin, she's playing with crayons and coloring book, and I had crayons too in a coloring book. He came in there and he sat next to me, and I immediately got scared. He told me to continue to drawing. Oh, that looks pretty. As he was putting his hand in my pajama pants, touching on my private part. And he told me, it's okay, just keep drawing. With my youngest niece right next to me on the floor. Then my uncle came into the living room, and that's when he immediately stopped, and he was just pretending like he never did anything. He got up, went to the living room. I got up. I tried to go to my nana and tell her, and he kept following me everywhere. He kept asking her, Mom, can I spend a night? Can I please spend a night? And, I'm just so happy she did say no. She said, no, you cannot spend a night. You cannot spend a night. But as he was leaving, he asked me to open up the front door. I went down to open up the front door. He pulled out his private part and started masturbating. That's when he ended up leaving. I told on him. My nana called him, and he just said, why would you lie? Nisha, I would never do that to you. I would never hurt you. And I'm sitting there, you did do that. You touched on me. But that was the last day I ever seen him. In my teenage through early adulthood, I never felt safe. Even as a child, I never felt safe. I was very hypersexual and promiscuous. I would talk to a lot of people, sneak out. I was very rebellious. I would have sexual relationships with multiple people because I just wanted to feel loved. And I also had this belief, if somebody is kind of sexualizing me in a way, or if I'm sexualizing something, then it's love, when in reality, that's not love. I would drink. I started smoking. I was just very insecure. I just wanted to be loved because I never felt love. All I felt was rejection and being sexualized as a child. In 2021, it come out that my uncle sexually abused a very close relative, and it just, all of the trauma and everything just started coming up once again. And it really destroyed me mentally, emotionally, and physically. I started throwing up. I couldn't sleep. I was having nightmares, and I was just very in a bad state of mind, and which led me to go to therapy. That's when I started going to therapy and reaching out to a counselor because I knew I really needed help, and I'm still going to therapy till this day. And when I started going to therapy, that's when I realized what was the root causes of all of my actions, what was the root causes of being hypersexual and just feeling so misunderstood and insecure. So with my therapist, she did and has helped a lot with my journey of trying to heal. I would tell every girl and boy that is a victim of sexual abuse or assault to not let this break you down. And I know it's way easier than said. Please get therapy. And most of all, please speak out. If we can speak out about everything else, speak out against the people who has hurt you worse, whether that's a family member, a friend, a well-known person, it does not matter. That person, and don't ever feel like it's your fault, because a lot of guilt and shame does come with it when you feel like it's normal, but it's not normal. You are loved, you are cherished, and you do not deserve that. We didn't choose that, but we can overcome it through time and therapy and perseverance. We can get through it.